In this episode of Let's Talk, Chris Moser talks about how the sources of information regarding news seems to be shrinking in our modern age.
When I was growing up in this country, we had we got our sources basically from three networks, broadcast commercial networks, in a typical city or of any size, or a middle-sized city like I grew up in Knoxville, a morning and evening newspaper, the local TV stations, some news on the local radio stations, even the rock and roll stations had news at the top of the hour. If you were a news junkie, you subscribed to Time, Newsweek, U.S. News World Report, and that was basically it. And the irony is, the paradox is that with all the diverse sources that we have now compared to then, we were civically more literate then as a country, as a society. I am absolutely convinced than we are now.
I think one of the issues today is that because the way the internet works with these little robots and the little, they can determine what your preferences are and just feed you that preference. So you don't get to see the other perspective, which then creates a problem. Because I interviewed somebody who was a rabbi, and he was talking about his friends who are Palestinian. And he was saying that the difficulty was that on Facebook, he was getting one strand of news that was being fed to him constantly, and he couldn't seem to move outside of that. And his Palestinian friends were getting another stream of news which gave them their perspective, and it put them at loggerheads. It was only because he had conversations with them that he realized that they were getting something totally different. And I think we saw that here in Northern Ireland, that we could see the local Northern Irish news during the Troubles. And when you went back to see the national news, it was painting a different picture to what had actually happened here in Northern Ireland. So I think we were suffering the same kind of problem. So, and again, you'd mentioned that the different newspapers had their bureaus, which I've also sourced from other journalists, and now it just seems to be one source that seems to have the news, and they just filter it out to everybody. So it's very hard now for journalists to clarify where their sources of information have actually come from. I mean, is that something you find now as well? How to find out whether a story is valid or not?
That is a problem now. I notice what newspapers often do now, both in the print sections and online, such as Atlanta Journal-Constitution, which does very good investigative work. And they will have maybe a sidebar along with the investigative story they're doing or other stories they're doing, and it will be called How We Got the Story, and it will encapsulate the sources that they went to, the primary sources, and just as the media fact checkers do, they will show you how to go to the primary sources they went to in order to verify what they're saying, so that they're saying these are the facts we found. If you don't believe us, you can check it out for yourself.
Now, one of the things that I'm seeing, again, you'd mentioned that anybody could pick up a camera and start to film their own stories. And with YouTube now, 400 minutes worth of material, is it about 400 minutes, maybe 400 hours worth of material is uploaded every minute. So there's such a vast amount of material that, again, is just people's views and opinions. And that basically swamps the information. But I noticed that a lot of stuff that we're seeing from America tends to be very right-wing in its delivery, and there's no more socialistic or I don't know, democratic perspective that's being put out so much. And is that what you're finding over where you are in America? How's the balance of information being distributed now?
Well, absolutely. You would think from, I mean, going back to the 1980s, from that time to the present on AM radio, you would think from, if that's all you did, listen to AM radio on talk programs, you would think that most people in America are far right. They're not. That's their segment they're focusing for, and it would be a subject for another very long discussion as to why the left didn't develop talk radio and find the market for it the way right wing did. Very, from the beginning. So I don't want to try to even get into that question, but the fact is that didn't really happen. There was always very little moderate, let alone progressive talk radio. And then Fox News developed as what it described as an antidote to the supposed left-wing slant of CNN, which was nonsense. I worked for CNN. I know very well how scrupulously they were about playing everything straight down the middle. The worst thing CNN historically has done and is in that context is to try to be so overboard to be, quote, fair and objective, that they put on somebody who's speaking for the left-wing perspective and somebody from the right-wing perspective, and just let them go on, sometimes not even fact-checking in real time as they go, and then just said, well, we did our job, we presented both sides, and you decide, even though it might be a respected climate scientist reflecting 97% of the views of climate scientists on climate change on one side of the desk, and Sarah Palin on the other side of the desk, who really knows nothing about it, and calling that objective. Well, that's not objective. That's lazy. Good journalism, as Bill Moyers, the great PBS and former CBS journalist, has often said, is not just putting on two views and leaving you to figure out the truth. Good journalists dig the truth and report it.
We have more on the way, so please subscribe to this channel and check out the link below if you'd consider becoming a patron to help us keep making more content. Thanks for watching.